Season 2 of Wednesday has been leaving fans buzzing with expectations thanks to all its mysteries, secrets, and shocking revelations. But have you ever imagined what might really be behind Aunt Ophelia and how this secret could completely change the direction of the story? Has she already appeared? In Season 2, there was a little detail that many people completely overlooked, probably because it seemed easier to believe that this mysterious character was just another random extra. But when Wednesday went with Uncle Fester to investigate the aviary, she ended up discovering something way darker. Inside one of the rooms, there were people who were officially declared dead, but in reality, they were trapped. They were outcasts, just like Wednesday herself, and victims of bizarre experiments conducted by Dr. Augustus and his daughter in what was called Project Lois. And this is when the most intriguing figure appears, a woman who looked fragile, wearing light floral clothes among the prisoners. At first glance, everyone thought it might be Tyler's mom. After all, who else would make sense in such a shocking moment? But here's the catch. If she really were a Hyde, then why wasn't she tied up like the others? Remember, even Tyler himself was restrained and tied down to prevent him from transforming. So, if this woman wasn't restrained, then there was definitely something different about her. Another detail, her floral clothes. Just a random costume choice? Not exactly. In the classic Addams Family series, Aunt Ophelia was known precisely for her love of flowers, colors, and flashy dresses, a total contrast with Morticia's black and elegant style. That reference doesn't seem like a coincidence. Now, the most popular theory circulating among fans is that this mysterious woman could actually be Aunt Ophelia. But there's a twist. She looked fragile, drained, and didn't show any powers at all. This has led many to believe her abilities might have been drained, stolen in the Project Lois experiments. That would explain why she didn't need to be tied up. Without powers, she posed no threat. And here's the most puzzling detail. On the door of that room, there were security warnings, like they were guarding someone extremely dangerous. Yet, when the door opened, all we saw was this seemingly defenseless woman. That suggests there used to be great power there, power that was stripped away from her. In other words, she may not be just some random extra. She could actually be the hidden clue that Ophelia never really died, but instead became the victim of something much worse, turned into a test subject, stripped of her powers, and surviving only as a shadow of who she once was. Today, we're going to dive into Ophelia's role this season, especially in helping Wednesday. So come join us for another video. The Unknown Woman. You're probably asking yourself, so was that mysterious woman really Tyler's mom? Or could she actually be Aunt Ophelia? Well, that's where things get messy. If we remember correctly, at the very end of the first part of Season 2, when Tyler's Hyde crosses paths with Wednesday, she tells him to hide. But in all that back and forth, everything spirals out of control. Wednesday ends up in a coma, and during that time, completely loses track of the investigation. That's exactly when the door scene becomes so important. In that cell, there was a clear warning that whatever was inside was dangerous. But when the door opened, there wasn't a monster or some furious mutant. Instead, we saw a calm woman wearing light floral clothes who actually looked much healthier than the other prisoners, who were in a terrible, almost unrecognizable state. Weird, right? Now here's the cherry on top. In Wednesday's diary, her Aunt Ophelia's symbol is a raven. And if we connect the dots, it seems this woman may have absorbed, or maybe lost, the powers of other outcasts. Maybe she was used as a guinea pig in some ritual, or maybe she was turned into a reservoir for stolen abilities. Another interesting point is the casting choice. The actress doesn't look aged or destroyed by experiments like the others. On the contrary, she's in the exact age range to fit as a brand new guide for Wednesday in this stage of the story. And let's be real, if the director deliberately placed this actress in such an enigmatic role, it wasn't by accident. So here's the big question. Are we looking at Tyler's mom, who somehow survived, or at Ophelia, Wednesday's long-lost aunt, finally reappearing as a key piece of the mystery? And if she really is Ophelia, it makes perfect sense. She would have been captured, exploited in experiments, and stripped of her powers, leaving nothing but the shell of someone who was once powerful. Maybe what sets her apart from the other prisoners is exactly that. She's not just another victim, she's a direct link to Wednesday's family, and could very well be the key to her future. But what do you think? Is the mysterious woman just a disguised Hyde, or is it Ophelia returning from the shadows to become Wednesday's new guide? Morticia's sister. One of the biggest secrets kept in Wednesday's second season is Aunt Ophelia. No doubt about it. Apparently, Morticia had a younger sister who had powers just as strong as Wednesday's. But instead of training at Nevermore, she was locked up in Willow Hill and simply vanished for about 20 years. To make matters worse, according to Morticia herself, their mother didn't lift a finger to help. The result? Morticia was so traumatized that she grabbed Goody's famous book to make sure Wednesday would never share the same fate as her missing aunt. This is, in fact, one of Morticia's greatest fears. She knows that overusing power can lead to madness. She's seen it happen before and swears she will never repeat her mother's mistakes. Actually, Morticia and Wednesday are in a constant back-and-forth fight about this, except in their case, the arguments are filled with irony, psychic powers, and deadly stares. In this season, it's clear Morticia is keeping a much closer eye on Wednesday, caring for her with that overprotective gothic mom vibe. After all, after Wednesday's little spiritual CSI vacation chasing a serial killer in Kansas, Even Thing got worried. And honestly, if even a mouthless hand starts questioning you about black tears, you know things have gotten serious. Before we keep uncovering everything about Ophelia in Season 2 of Wednesday, drop a comment below with the word power. Dove and Raven. A lot of people are still confused about this. What exactly is the difference between Morticia's, Ophelia's, and Wednesday's powers? Because yes, at first glance they may look similar, but in reality, each one works in a very different way. Wednesday and Ophelia inherited darker gifts, the kind that would make any therapist ask for a raise. Both of them have intense, disturbing visions of reality, almost like they can see secrets no one would ever want to know: death, tragedies, pain, and some pretty grim destinies. No wonder Wednesday spends the whole show with that vibe of someone who already knows her future does not include a beach wedding with flowers in her hair. Morticia, on the other hand, interestingly followed a different path. Her powers are linked to more positive, even uplifting vibes, which is kind of funny since she's always been the biggest fan of mourning, darkness, and cemetery poetry. And that's where Ophelia comes in. A lot of people think she'd just be Morticia's copy, but not at all. In fact, Ophelia distanced herself from that dark side and didn't share the same obsession with black dresses and tragedy. This is explored mainly in the classic Addams Family version, not so much in the Netflix series. And that's exactly what makes the comparisons so interesting. While Morticia embraced the darkness, Ophelia preferred something lighter, and Wednesday ended up inheriting the family's heaviest side. Now, the most striking feature of Wednesday's powers is the black tears. They show up whenever she pushes too hard on her spiritual connection, almost like a physical warning that her mind is crossing the line. There was even one episode where Wednesday got sick from overusing her gifts, and Morticia, panicked, turned to Goody's book. That book works almost like a supernatural first aid manual, a way to stop her daughter from going insane like her younger sister did. This detail is key to understanding why Morticia is so hard on Wednesday. She's already seen this movie before with Ophelia, and she's not about to let history repeat itself. If it's up to her, her daughter's power will be kept under control through discipline, gothic drama, and, of course, long speeches full of tragic metaphors. In the end, this difference in powers creates an incredible contrast in the story. Morticia, who's always loved the dark, ended up with luminous abilities, while Wednesday and Ophelia inherited the heavy, shadowy visions. Maybe that's exactly why Morticia worries so much, because deep down, she knows that darkness always demands a price. Ophelia. If we take a look at the classic black and white Addams Family, it's easy to notice the contrast. Ophelia was kind, innocent, almost like a little flower in the middle of a gothic garden. Morticia, on the other hand, always had that dark, elegant, mysterious aura. It was like one of them was the neighbor who brings you cake, and the other only showed up at night in a flowing black dress. But here's a curious detail. As much as Morticia always loved the weird, the different, and even the funeral vibe, her powers were never actually dark. In the very first season, she makes it clear that her spiritual connection is with positive things, with light. Yes, the Queen of Black connects with light. Oh, the irony. And that's exactly where Morticia's biggest drama comes in. Her fear that Wednesday, without proper training, might end up consumed by the weight of her own powers. For her, that's the ultimate nightmare, because she's seen it before. Ophelia herself lost control, ended up locked in a sanitarium, and then simply disappeared. That ghost from the past still haunts Morticia to this day. Black tears. There's a pretty curious scene full of symbolism. When Morticia opens her own sister's diary, she finds several illustrations of distressed faces crying black tears. At first glance, it just looks like another gothic detail to match the show's aesthetic. But looking more closely, this might actually be a huge Easter egg directly connecting Wednesday's story with the dark past of Aunt Ophelia. After all, what we do know is that Ophelia ended up corrupted by too much power. She believed she could use her gifts to become stronger, maybe even more influential. But she crossed the line between control and obsession. The result? She lost her way and met a very grim fate. She was swallowed by her own darkness, as if her powers finally demanded the bill. And that's exactly Morticia's greatest fear. When she looks at Wednesday, with all those raw, undisciplined powers, she sees a mirror of what happened to her sister. The black tears, which show up both in the drawings and in Wednesday's own moments of collapse, work like a visual warning. If she doesn't learn to control her gift, she could end up on the same tragic path as her aunt. That's why Morticia insists so much, sometimes even suffocatingly, when it comes to her daughter. It's not just the fuss of an overprotective gothic mom, it's the trauma of someone who has already witnessed a fall and knows exactly how the story can end. The difference is that this time, she's determined to change the ending. Willow Hill. And here comes one of the most curious details of the plot, the revelation about Wednesday's aunt. It's discovered that she was committed to Willow Hill, a very unfriendly psychiatric hospital. Wednesday only finds this clue because she was investigating the suspicious death of Tyler's father. During the investigation, she discovers that he was digging into a case that happened in Jericho about 15 years earlier. People were being sent to Willow Hill and simply turning up dead, but he didn't believe that was the whole story. And who drops the key piece of the puzzle? Uncle Fester, of course, because if there's anyone in this family who always drops a bombshell in the middle of a casual conversation, it's him. Through him, Wednesday finds out her aunt ended up locked away in Willow Hill. But here's the catch. Nobody wanted to talk about what really happened to Ophelia, not even her father, when Wednesday tried to force the truth out of him, in one of those scenes where the sheriff catches her in a place she's not supposed to be, at Tyler's dead father's house. Gomez simply replied that it was better to ask Morticia. And let's be honest, you already know something heavy is coming when you hear a line like that. That's when Morticia revealed that it all happened during Ophelia's second year at school. Her power spun out of control, her mind began to shatter, and the family had to commit her to Willow Hill. The darkest part of this story? She simply vanished from there. This ghost from the past is exactly what makes Morticia so paranoid about Wednesday. To her, all the signs are there: black tears, intense visions, and a stubborn streak that pushes her into dangerous investigations. It's as if fate itself is trying to repeat the tragedy. And Morticia is determined to make sure the story doesn't play out again, no matter what it takes. The answer to all these mysteries will only arrive on September 3rd, with the release of the last 4 episodes of the series. And of course, the anticipation is already sky high. We'll finally discover where Aunt Ophelia really is, or better yet, if that mysterious woman who appeared is truly her. And if you're into the world of animation, we've got 2 really fun videos you'll love to watch. Thanks for sticking with us, and see you next time.